There are far worse things facing man than death.
What's up, my wizards? Dev, SBMTG down there. We do magic stuff on YouTube. Here's a deck everybody wants. I asked you a little while ago, do you want to see black-white Eldrazi or blue-black zombies? The entire comment section was like, blue-black zombies, son. Now, Dimir Zombs is a deck that's sort of in the same position as black-red vampires in that there was a good amount of hype for it before the season started. But in the first couple of weekends here, we really haven't seen much activity from it. And in just a week, we got the Pro Tour coming up. So what can we do if we want blue-black zombies to be an actual thing? There are some things we can do as a response to the format, but a lot of those are going to come in the spells. We'll get to those in a minute. Let's talk about the creatures first. 25 of them, and we're going to start with the Bash Brothers, the Gruesome Twosome. This is the obvious inclusion of a 4 of Relentless Dead and a 4 of Prized Amalgam. We need both these guys, and they go together so well, I figured I'd talk about both of them at the same time. I mean, the interaction between these two guys is pretty obvious. I don't have to talk about it too much. I mean, it's right there, you know. You pay X when Relentless Dead dies. You get a zombie back from your graveyard to the battlefield. When you do that, you'll also get any Prized Amalgams back at the end of the turn. You'll have to wait until the end step, but you'll get them back at the end of the turn. So that interaction is just crazy already. The problem with Amalgam is that it's just a 3-mana 3/3 when it's not sitting in your graveyard. When it does get into play, it's really just a guy that's vanilla and has no real abilities. Just a 3/3 body. But that can be good when it happens over and over and over. We've seen that on Death Mist Raptor. And sure, you know, Amalgam doesn't have Death Touch or anything, but still, when you got the same 3-powered body coming back over and over, that can be really good, and Relentless Dead isn't the only way of making it happen. We're also running Liliana, which Prized Amalgam works really, really well with too. One thing I should note with Relentless Dead is that the best thing you can do with it, or one of the best things you can do, is get other copies of Relentless Dead back, you know? When Relentless Dead dies, pay a black, and then pay 2 more for the X. Get a Relentless Dead back from your graveyard, put it on the battlefield. That can be really good, and loops well with things like mtgo Husk, obviously. So that's awesome, and Kalitas is in this deck as well, so works pretty awesome with that too. Last thing I'll say about Relentless Dead is that one of the main problems for the zombie deck is that, and this is only sort of tangentially related to Relentless Dead, just because he's a 2-drop, but we need more 2-drop zombies. We need at least one more playable 2, or even I'll take a 1-drop zombie for this deck to be truly viable. I feel like it's tier, 3 right now. It really needs to move up. But the lack of another 2-drop zombie is really hurting us. And Relentless Dead often costs 3 black mana, which can be a problem because you'll play him for 2, his casting cost, but you want to have a black mana up so that you can return him to your hand just in case anything happens. And that also means that we have a pretty heavy commitment to black in the deck, but that's okay. I don't want to play too many blue cards. You can play Prized Amalgam and like one other thing in the main deck and be mostly mono black. Works out. We're playing 3 copies of Fleshbag Marauder in the deck. One of my favorite zombies in the format, honestly. And this, I have said before in a different video, but I'll say it again. This works very well for Relentless Dead. And, say if you have an Nantuko Husk out, you can always sack the Relentless Dead to Nantuko Husk, pay the black to pop it back to your hand, and then you'll pay 3 to bring Fleshbag Marauder into play. You'll sacrifice it to itself, put it back into your graveyard. They'll have to sacrifice the creature too, obviously. And you can just repeat this over and over if you have the mana and the turns for it. And after a while, you can really kind of grind out their whole board. It does happen. And yeah, that's a neat trick, but Fleshbag Marauder is good sort of on its own, just having a creature that also doubles as removal. Always good, and I like the fact that it's a sack effect too. So all of this is nice. We're playing 4 copies of Diregraph Colossus in the deck. I really like this card. You play it late, and you can play like an 8/8 or 9/9 Colossus, depending on how late you are in the game. And then you play it early for a relatively low investment of 3 mana, and you can end up getting, 6/8 power out of it sometimes in zombie tokens and also its own PT as well. And it's especially good later on in the game with Relentless Dead, because Relentless Dead can die, you'll bring this back for just the 3 mana, and it can be enormous. So all of that's awesome. Problem is that it's a pretty grindy card, so it needs a few turns often. And even if you just need 1 turn to swing in with it, you've just played your 9/9 Colossus, you still have to wait a whole turn cycle before you can swing with it, which can be a bit of an issue. It's fairly removable, but still, it can be a great finisher, which we have a few of. Last thing I'll say is that we are running Kalitas in the deck, which means that the 2/2 zombies it generates can be great fodder for Kalitas. So another synergy right there, pretty good. We're playing 4 copies of mtgo Husk in this deck right here. Really like, obviously, the way this works with Relentless Dead, but it's also got good synergy with Diregraph Colossus, you know? If you just sacrificed a bunch of guys so you can get in a big swing with an unblocked mtgo Husk, then second main you play your Diregraph Colossus, and he's pretty big because you just sacrificed all those zombies, you know? So that's good interaction there. But obviously this is especially good with Relentless Dead. I probably don't have to tell you that. And it's sometimes a finisher, you know? If you can get through with it unblocked, just sacrifice all your other zombies, and suddenly you're dealing 10 damage. 3 copies of Liliana, Heretical Healer in the deck. I just think this is a no-brainer inclusion, you know, and I want the deck to stay fairly budget, but we've got to play this, and we've more or less got to play Kalitas too, so it's just the way it is, honestly. Those are the 2 cards that push the deck up to a fairly high price. But definitely worth playing, obviously. Liliana is pretty good early game because she helps us, you know, kind of stave them off. That lifelink is more important than it looks, is all I'm saying. But when she does flip, she gives us a 2/2 zombie. That's obviously relevant. And also, all of her abilities are really good. Not only can she obviously get other zombies back into play, and that works well with Prized Amalgam, but we can discard a Prized Amalgam or another zombie that we can get back with the Relentless Dead later and make them discard a card as well. Her ultimate is obviously also amazing, but really I'm just worried about her negative X ability because that thing is crazy in this deck and we have to play her. I put in 1 copy of Risen Executioner in the deck. Now, with all the creatures in the deck and a bunch of other zombies and stuff, we're not going to be playing this out of the graveyard very often, you know. Sometimes late game, we can play it for 6, 7, 8 mana, you know. And it's not too terrible, you know. Mostly because it'll give all of our zombies a buff later on in the game. If we've got a bunch of zombies on the battlefield, but not necessarily in the graveyard, this can be good, you know. If we've got tokens from Diregraph Colossus, then we can play a Risen Executioner, and suddenly they're all like 3 power. So that can be good too. But Risen Executioner, I mostly just wanted as a sort of pump effect on all of our guys, but I didn't want to play too many because I think the other 4-drop we can play is actually just much better. 2 copies of Kalitas to finish off the creatures here. Just gotta play Kalitas, man. You know, we've got a bunch of zombies in the deck. We're generating a bunch of tokens. You know, we're running Lily, we're running Diregraph Colossus and stuff. So just being able to make a huge Kalitas is really awesome. And a little bit later in the game, you know, 5th, 6th turn, making a Kalitas with 5 to 7 power swing is actually really good considering the lifelink there. You know, 14-point life swing is what we want around that time in the game. If we made it that far, which we're trying to do in the spell base here. We'll get to that in just a second. But I think that Kalitas is a no-brainer, and I'd probably rather play more copies of him than Risen Executioner, even with the buff from Executioner. This Kalitas is an amazing finisher. We're playing 10 spells in the deck, and a lot of this is a response to what we know is the format right this second at least. We're going to play 6 pieces of 2-mana instant speed removal in the deck. I think that's important. And 3 copies of that is going to be Grasp of Darkness, 3 copies of that is going to be Ultimate Price. They're both, most importantly, instant speed answers for Avacyn, Archangel Avacyn. That's very important. You put the trigger on the stack when she enters the battlefield, and you can kill her so she won't flip or anything, and just won't be around anymore. That's good. But an instant speed answer for Avacyn, I think, is very important, and both of these can do it. If they haven't always watching out, Grasp of Darkness can't, but Ultimate Price can still do the job for you. If red-black vampires are a thing in your meta, then Grasp of Darkness is what you want to take out Olivia with. You can't hit it with Ultimate Price. Both of these can take out Thing in the Ice. That's pretty important. They can take out almost anything in mono-white together. They can also take out pretty much anything in red-black vampires, not just Olivia for Grasp, but pretty much anything. And Ultimate Price and Grasp can both kill Jace. So these are all incredibly important creatures in the format, from everything in mono white to everything in red-black vampires to, you know, Jace to Thing in the Ice to all of these things. So we have to have some amount of removal to deal with those. We're playing 2 copies of Negate in the main deck, and I know that looks weird, but it's going to be in the sideboard anyway. It's guaranteed to be in the sideboard. And we've got to have it against certain things. Collected Company is obviously important. Various Planeswalkers, notably Chandra and Sorin later on in the game. We were already set up a little bit. On turn 6, we can hold up and start waiting for that Chandra or Sorin to come down. Also good against other Planeswalkers, though. Also good against Declaration in Stone, a card that we absolutely hate a lot. So once we get set up, we can sort of defend against declaration with negate. That's important. Counters sweepers that we don't want to happen, especially flaying tendrils. That's fairly important. And it also counters always watching, which is an important card in the format. So, and there's even more that I just didn't name. So yeah, I think negate is actually main deck playable right now, especially in something like this that has to have answers to so many things that it wouldn't otherwise have answers for. I think countering is the best option. We're playing one compelling deterrence. That looks weird in the main deck, right? We're actually playing more in the sideboard because this is our big answer for Ormondal after Westvale Abbey flips. We can return it to their hand, add instant speed, not have to worry about getting hit, and they have to discard a card. If it's late enough in the game, Westvale Abbey might be the only card in their hand after we bounce it. So all of those things are good. I think compelling deterrence is worth the one of in the main because Westvale Abbey is so incredibly popular right now. People are just throwing it in things. We've done that here. So, you know, Westvale Abbey very important, and Ormondal can win a game out of nowhere, and there's nothing we would otherwise be able to do about it. So in the main deck, I like to have at least some way of dealing with that situation should it arise. And to finish off the spells, we're playing one copy of Languish, just the one copy, because we recover from Languish very, very well. And sometimes we can cast the Languish and then go about our business, you know. Turns 2, 3, 4, we can just sort of hold them off, remove creatures, and then hit them with the Languish, and then just start doing what we do, playing zombies and establishing a board, and sort of, you know, after we've crippled them and taken out their first few turns worth of creatures, they don't have as many cards in their hand, we can start doing what we do. So that works really well against the aggro decks and the white-based aggro decks in the format. If we can get to Languish on turn 4, then we have a much, much better chance of winning the game. And even if we already have an established board, we've got a lot of things in the deck that allow us to recover very easily from a Languish. So we can blow away the entire board, and as long as we have a couple of turns to recover, we really don't care because we have a much better chance of recovering from our own Languish than they do. Languish is also good considering the variety of large creatures that we have. You know, Kalatas after one sacrifice is bigger than the Languish. Diagraph Colossus, depending on when we played it, can be bigger than the Languish. Nantuko Husk, you know, we play Languish, sacrifice all our guys. Nantuko Husk has a naked board and 12 power sometimes. So that works really, really well too. 25 lands in the deck, and we need all those lands. We're like really hungry, and I wouldn't really mind playing another one. Relentless Dead really wants all of the mana when you play it. It's very, very mana intensive, but we need a lot of mana is all I'm saying. And the Westvale Abbey is very important in the deck. I'm thinking about doing 2 copies. We're running 25 creatures. A lot of them can create tokens, so getting the 5 creatures often not a problem. And the cool thing is if they find an answer to our Ormondal, then we can usually get the creatures that we sacrificed to Westvale Abbey in the first place back. We've got a lot of ways of doing that. So that, you know, not a lot of decks in the format can say that, you know. If somehow they deal with Ormondal, we can get some of those dudes back that we sacrificed. That's important. Also, Road's Passage is in there, and it looks kind of weird, but again, a lot of our creatures are big, you know. Kalatas can get big, Diagraph Colossus gets big, Nantuko Husk gets big, and if we can just get it through with a Road's Passage, we can often just end the game. Here's the fairly involved sideboard here, and it's really, really, really important. I worked very hard on the sideboard to get it where I want it to be. Invasive Surgery is mostly against, first of all, sweepers that we don't want, but it's mostly against Declaration and Stone. Just like Dispel was really good against Charms, Commands, Collected Company, and stuff like that in the last format. And Dispel is still good and could be in the sideboard, but we got main deck negates to take out, Collected Company and stuff like that. But I think Invasive Surgery is going to be comparably important against Declaration and Stone. The card is already 4 of in almost every deck that carries white, and something like 80% of the top decks in the format carry white. So just probably one of the top 3 most popular or most played cards in the format right now is Declaration. This can deal with that, and in some cases, later on in the game, take out any remaining copies of Declaration they happen to have. And yes, Declaration is that good against us where I really want like a dedicated card in the sideboard to deal with it. And you know, obviously this isn't truly dedicated. It also takes out other sorceries. That's good. But just, you know, to point this out, newer players, if they do target one of your zombos with Declaration and Stone and you have Nantuko Husk out, you can always just sack it in response to the Nantuko Husk. It'll go to your graveyard, won't get exiled. You won't get the clue token either, but you know, whatever. The rest is fairly self-explanatory, although I do want to talk for a second about Silumgar's Command. You'll notice that it's here. Why is that here? I think that Silumgar's Command is a really good way of dealing with Ormondal and doing something else. That can be good. This can sometimes kill another Planeswalker and bounce the Ormondal, which is just incredibly good, or any creatures that they have laying around after, you know, they flip the Westvale. You can give them -3/-3 and bounce Ormondal. So I think that Silumgar's Command is really good and sort of a good on-curve way of dealing with Ormondal. Here are your power rankings for the deck. A final score of 64, which is definitely competitive playable, although it could use a few more points, you know. These cards just don't look incredibly powerful yet in the format, and the deck will probably need to get a piece or two out of Eldritch Moon to move up a tier, you know, in sort of the rankings here. But it is a very interesting deck that is really skill intensive. You have to know what to play and when, and sort of be, you know, sort of a mix of proactive and reactive. Know when to strike, know when to play the zombie, and know when to hold back for a removal piece or a negate. So deck is incredibly skill intensive, and you have to know what your opponent's game plan is in order to know, hey, should I hold up for an ultimate price, or should I go ahead and play this 3-drop zombie? It's up to you, but those decisions are going to make or break games for you. So very skill intensive, but can pull off some pretty high profile wins. Altogether, the deck's going to cost you about $200 on TCG Player. It could cost you as low as $175 or as high as about $220, depending on what prices you're going by. So we'll just put it right in the middle, about $200, which is pretty good. I mean, it's tier 3 deck. It's a tier 3 price on that deck too. Wizards may know what they're doing. That's all I've got for now. Let me know how you felt about this one in the comments. I've been brewing up zombies for what feels like months now. It's really just been about, you know, a month or 3 weeks, something like that. But a lot of people really wanted this deck, and I wanted to make it as good as it could be. And I did mention soul tie zombies, mostly so we could play Collected Company. I felt like that would be a very important card to play, but ultimately I'm still working on that. We'll have to see. You all right, Igby? I think you're okay. But what are we doing next time? That's pretty important too. Well, I'm working on Cryptolith Right. I've almost got that pretty much ready to go. I could do red-blue aggro. I want to know how many people in the comments are ready for that. I could also finally do black-white Eldrazi, one of my favorite decks in the format. I really, really like Black-White Eldrazi right now. And I'm cooking up Boros Mid-Range, which I actually think has a lot of really, really good tools. And finally, before Eldritch Moon spoilers start coming down the pipeline, I want to do one more of these things we want in Eldritch Moon videos. You know, a lot of people enjoyed that, and a lot of people, you know, pointed out my ability to make cards that are broken in Modern. So, you know, I at least want to fix one of those cards for Standard play, because we sort of fixed it in the comments, but I want to show it to you. And, more importantly, I want to do what everyone wants, which is the Legendary Werewolf, you know, Liliana, and Tamiyo. Everybody said that in the comments. Do versions of these, you know, and shared their versions of the cards. If you have versions of any of those cards, you know, Tamiyo, the Legendary Werewolf, or Liliana, that you have sort of brewing up in your head that you want to see, show us down there in the comments section. I'm always interested in that, and you might even see sort of a version of your card in the next Things We Want video. That's all I got for now. If you enjoyed the content, like it. That seems to make some degree of sense. You can share it if you think it deserves to be shared. You can comment, like I've already asked you to do a bunch of times. I really hope that you take me up on that offer. Or you can subscribe if you're new, do all the YouTube stuff. And I'll see you guys later. I'm Dev from SBMTG. This is the Igby Monster, chilling down here. Oh, buddy, you are so big. And I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching, my wizards.